In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use CLIJ Assistant to build a workflow with a graphic interface. Alright, so this is Fiji. So I haven't installed anything about CLIJ so far, so I'm going to show you how you can do this. So through the usual way to install plugins, meaning you go to Help and then Update. And so it's going to open a window where you can see if you have to update any plugin. And then when you click on Manage Update Sites, you can add new plugins. So I'm going to go directly to CLIJ. So CLIJ 2. And then to make sure that we have access to all the functionalities in CLIJ Assistant, I'm going to also add CLIJX Assistant extensions, BoneJ, the 3D ImageJ suite, and finally IJPB, which corresponds to MorphoLibJ. So you can only add CLIJ and CLIJ2, but when you also add these other plugins, then you have more functionalities in the assistant. So I'm going to close this window. So there's a bunch of plugins to be installed. So I'm just going to click now on Apply Changes. And I'm going to speed up the video because it's going to take a little bit of time to download all of these plugins. All right, it's down. So I need to restart Fiji if I want to use the plugin. Just before restarting it, so I'm going to close this. Here there's nothing. All right, so I'm just going to close it, restart it. It's not that there's nothing, but there's nothing related to CLIJ. And now I have the CLIJ Assistant here, so I can use it. So I'm going to open an image here. So this is an image from cell culture where nuclei was stained with DAPI. So as it's cell culture, it's not too packed, so segmentation is not too difficult. All right, if you want to have a look, that's what it looks like. So I'm going to use the CLIJ Assistant to build a workflow here. So I'm going to click on CLIJ. All right, when you do that, it opens the same image, but now you can start building your workflow. So I'm going to reduce the image so we can have a look at the entire workflow. And to start building your workflow, you right-click on the image, and then you can do a bunch of things. So sometimes you can do the suggested next steps. So here I'm just going to do what I think would be a good workflow in this case. So I first want to filter with a Gaussian blur. So I'm going to use Gaussian blur. So you can use the Gaussian blur for ImageJ, but the whole interest with CLIJ is to use your GPU. So I'm going to use the Gaussian blur 2D coming with CLIJ2. Right, I'm going to reduce it, and I'm going to keep going. So after that, I want to threshold the nuclei. So if I go to binarize auto threshold, so you can actually go to automatic threshold and use what you want. So that's the default. I'm going to reduce it again so we can see what's going on. And I can try certain ones. Wong, maybe Otsu. Otsu, I'm missing things. It really depends what you want to do. I think I'm going to go with Wong, right? And so then you can do a bunch of binary operations if you want. So maybe, fill holes. In that case, that's not going to be necessary, but on a regular workflow, it might be interesting. So I'm just going to do it here, And then I'm going to try to separate touching nuclei by doing a binary watershed. So here we have the ImageJ watershed. It's going to be a binary watershed. All right. So as you can see, we were able to separate some of them here. All right. So not all of them. Probably this is not just one nucleus, but you know, we're able to separate some of them. And I'm going to say that's, you know, I'm happy with that. So I'm down. Very interestingly with CLIJs, but you can change the parameters now. So let's say I increase the size of my Gaussian blur, which is used to actually not be too dependent on the noise, and so to have better contrast between objects and background. And you can directly see how it affects your final segmentation. And you know, for example, maybe it's better that way. So here you see, if we have a Gaussian blur with a smaller kernel, the areas of the mask are smaller. For example, look at this here. It's not really touching. If I go to 2, now it's touching, and I need the watershed to separate them, but it doesn't really change much in the results. So let's say I'm happy with that. I can, from here, generate a script that can be used in an ImageJ macro, of course, but you can also use scripts with different Fiji languages. But also you can generate a script that's going to be able to use with IC or with Python. So you can use it with, for example, with Netari. That's pretty cool. So I'm just going to generate an ImageJ macro here. And maybe last thing before using it as a macro, what you can see is that so if you want to know in which order everything is, you can also go to more actions. No, where is it? I think it's here, and visualize connections. And so then so you see, when you move, I move this one, it also moves the ones that are after this one. So here, as you can see, it starts here, goes there, then there, then this one, which then goes to this one. So we could also change this and see how it affects. So let's say before we're using the Otsu. So that's really the cool thing. So let's say now I think that everything is fine, and so I can generate the script and run it, and it does so, gives me the output and all the other images. All right, from this one to this one, and of course you can then change it. So here it opens the image I used, but you could obviously have so process your images, all the images that are in a given folder, and then here it shows you how you use CLIJ, which is almost very important for the memory access. You see, you need to do some release and pull, but that's the main thing you need to understand. And also very important, you need to run this command when you do ImageJ macro, otherwise it won't work.